keep track of rainfall in Pretoria in the years 2007 up to 2009 in the winter months. I've already created part of the interface, as you can see. What I'm going to add now is a data grid view. We're going to call it data grid view rainfall. We're going to add a few columns. The first one is called 2007. I'm not changing the name there. If you want to, you can. 2008 and 2009. Alright, that's it. So we'll have to make it a bit bigger such that we can see that. Alright, so we make use of knowledge about two-dimensional arrays when we work with values inside the data grid view. So that is what we are actually looking at in this lecture, two-dimensional arrays and then how it's applied in a data grid view control. Okay, how do you get data inside a data grid view? Well, you can run the program and then enter it, or you can do it in runtime. So in the data form load event handler, I've already typed in the following lines of code, and I'm going to explain it to you. So the first line, this line shows that, it adds 3 rows. These 3 lines of code gives the different rows the names, headers, May, June and July. Then in this part of the code, what I'm doing is I'm populating the data grid with data. So in the first column, this will be the data. In the second column, this will be the data. And in the third column, this will be the data. Remember that the index of the first column is 0, of the second column 1, and of the third column 2. And I'm running through the rows with index 0, 1, 2. Okay, so if we run the program now, this is what we get. We'll have to do this to make sure that we can see those names of the months. But here you have now the data displayed. Okay, we are ready now to start programming the different event handlers. Okay, so the first event handler is to work out the total rainfall in the different years that fell in the month June. Okay, so if it's June, it means that you have to go, you have to keep the row constant, but that you run through different columns. So we can start off by declaring a variable called I, as well as a variable called June row sum. Whatever you want to, it doesn't really matter. Okay, now you will remember from the slides that we're now going to use a for loop. We must just concentrate and make sure that we keep the right index constant. Okay, so I is less than data grid view rainfall dot columns dot count. Do you remember what this is? It means that I must go from 0, 1, 2, because how many columns are there? There are 3 columns, so it must stop before 3, and then of course it must increment. Alright. Okay, now how do we get this total? So it's June row, June row sum. So through each loop, you're going to add to itself the next value. So we must we have to convert the value to integer to be able to add it. So what is it that we're going to add? It is the values in the data grid view. But remember now, we're keeping the row constant. And which row is it? It's the June row. And the index of the June row is 1. So we are going through the different columns. That's why the column index is I, which is a variable, so it goes from 0, 1, and 2, whereas the row index remains constant. Okay. Yes, so there you have it. So that should do the job, and then we just want to display this. So we say the total rainfall in June of 2007 to 2009 was, and then we can just say convert to string. And what is it that we convert? The final value of June row sum. Okay, so let's see if this works. Okay, so let's work out the total rainfall in June. So it said the total rainfall in June was 95, actually 95 millimeters, so we must just remember the next one to add the unit. Is that correct? 40 plus 15 plus 40, yes, that's 95. Good. Right, so now we're ready to program the next event handler. Now, how does it differ from the previous one? In this one, we added the rainfall in 1 month. Here, we want to add the rainfall in 1 year. So now we have going to keep the column constant, but we're going to cycle through the rows. Okay. So, very similar to the previous one. So we start off by declaring a variable, and we can call it total column 2008, and then we have a for loop. Start from 0. Now the point is, where do we stop? So we stop, we say I less than data grid view rainfall dot rows dot count. So I plus plus. So what is data grid view rainfall rows dot count? It's the number of rows. Now, unless you set it differently, the rows in your data grid view will always be more than the number that you've added. There's always a default row added. In this case, it doesn't matter because the row that is not populated with data will contain only zeros, so that's not going to make a difference. So we say that the total column 2008 plus equal, and then it will be, I'm going to cut and paste because it's very similar to that one. But there is a very important difference, and that is now we keep the column constant, but we change the row. We're now cycling or stepping through the row. Okay, so I'm going to cut and paste this one because we want to display the final answer, the total rainfall in 2008 was, convert to string, in this case it's total column 2008, and maybe it's a good idea to add the unit. Okay, so let's see now how that works. Okay, so total rainfall in 2008, 52. So let's see, is that correct? Yes, that looks correct. 37 plus 15 plus 0 gives you 52. Good. Okay, the last one we're going to do in this exercise is to work out the total rainfall over all those months, over all those years. And by now, I think you will expect what will happen. We are going to use a nested for loop because now we have to not keep, we can't keep any of the rows or columns constant. We have to step through each and every cell in the data grid view. Okay, So again, I need variables to store this value, and now I start with the for loop. So first of all, I'm going to keep the columns constant. So I less than data grid view rainfall columns dot count I plus plus. Okay, and now I have the inner for loop. So it's for j equals 0, j less than data grid view rainfall dot rows dot count j plus plus. Okay, and what is it now that I want to add? So I'm going to use one of these lines because it's very similar. So instead of total column, it's just sum. And it is data grid view, but now it is I, and this is j. Because here we're keeping this I indicates the column and j indicates the row. So let's see if this works. So let me just display in a message box what is the final answer. Right, the total rainfall, now in all the years, total rainfall was convert to string sum plus, okay. Alright, so let's see if that works. Okay, so we've just programmed now the double for or the nested for loop. Just to remind you, a for loop, we start off with keeping I, doing this inner for loop for I equals 0. Once you've done that, you increment I with 1. Then you do again the inner for loop for I equal 1. So you go on. Now in this case, I indicates the column. So you do the inner, you go column by column. That's how you do this inner for loop. Let's now run this program. See how it works. I want to work out the total winter rainfall, and it tells me it's 141, and that seems correct. Okay, that's all for today.